Hi there. Well, as it's getting on towards autumn now, I thought it was time that we perhaps did something a little bit more autumnal in our makes. A number of the students that come along to our classes have asked about making little pumpkins. Just little ones, not huge ones, but just little decorative ones. So I thought I'd give a little demonstration on how to do that. So I've got some clay here. This clay is our stoneware clay. It's a fired clay. But of course, if you don't have access to a kiln, you can use air dry clay. You can use Fimo, you can use any type of clay like that tool. But this works for us because once it's fired and glazed, it will be completely weatherproof. So we'll be able to put it out in the garden. So I'm going to start by taking a bit of this clay, chop off a lump, slightly bigger lump. So I want two pieces eventually, so I'll start off putting them together. So this actually is going to make a pumpkin. Eventually I'm going to have this pumpkin, probably a little bit smaller than this, so I'll take a little bit more off. So at the moment it's solid, but it's going to get a bit bigger. So first thing to do is we're going to need to make two pinch pots with this. So I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to put one half into my non-dominant hand, my left hand in my case because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to push my thumb into it until I can feel my thumb but don't go right through. So you create sort of a thumb mushroom. Then keeping my thumb still, I'm going to draw my fingers up the side of it, like that, all the way around, thinning it out and turning it into a little cup shape. Having gone round it once, and this is going to go around it again, just smooth it down. Way around. I want to try and make sure it's the same thickness everywhere. So, like that. Okay, one half a pot. Then we do the same with the other half. Again, drawing the clay up as I go. This stops the clay from flopping out too much. If you've had trouble with pinch pots before, it's probably because you are pinching too much when you actually should be stroking the clay into shape. Okay, and then we can go around and even it up all the way around. So we have two halves of our pumpkin. Now these two halves are going to go together. Now it's probable you won't have your two the same size, but that's okay because you can work on that. But that's close enough. Now to join these, we need some way of joining them. Because I'm working in proper clay, I'm going to use what we call slip, which is clay and water. With air dry clay, you might just get away with a bit of water painted on it just to secure it. But here's mine. So this is made up of clay mixed up with water, and this acts like a glue on our pottery. So we paint that round. Then we put the two pieces together, try to marry them up like that. You see there's a little bit of a gap there, so let's rearrange it, get it together as best we can. Okay, like that. Next we need to make sure that that's drawing properly, and we do this by getting a little bit of clay. We roll it in our hands first of all to get it started, and then roll it out into making a nice little worm. Take our pot, paint right around it like that. As you can see, my worm's a little short, so I'm going to roll another one. Put that around there. And then to make sure that joins it properly, I'm going to smooth the clay down on one side, that, and then smooth it up onto the other pot. So it makes a join across the two pots. That, all the way around. And by doing this, we're sealing it, so we're sealing in here bubble of air, a bit like a balloon. And like a balloon, once it's sealed, we can then push against it a bit without it collapsing. So let's just smooth that all down now with my fingers. This is what I call the potato stage. So now we start making it pumpkin-like. So roll it around in your hands. If you have a bowl, you can try rolling it in a bowl. I'm going to roll it onto the work surface here. The more time we spend doing this bit, getting it round, the better the pumpkin will be. So I'll spend a bit of time. You see, each time I do it, see how smooth it's starting to get? This is nice soft clay, so I can get away with it, not having to put too much pressure on it. Each time I do it, you see it's getting smoother and smoother. I'm not too worried about this pumpkin being perfectly round, because pumpkins generally are perfectly round, but if you want to, get a bowl, roll it round in a bowl, and that will help. So already it's gone from the potato stage into something much more like a tennis ball. More. Always make sure the surface you're rolling on is clean, otherwise you'll be picking up bits as you go. And you see, I don't have to put much pressure on it to make it change shape at the moment, because it is nice soft clay. Right, so now I have my basic pumpkin. Next thing I do then is I want to make sure it's flat on the bottom so it doesn't roll away outside the door. So I'm just going to bounce it on the bottom a little bit there just to get it flat, nice and firm. So the next thing now is the little bit of sculpting to turn it into a pumpkin. So the first thing I'm going to do is at the top, I'm going to push my finger in. I want to go right through, but a bit like an apple. I want to make a dimple on the top. That's where the stalk's going to go in a bit. Then I'm going to get a pencil. And I'm going to go round, pick it up in my hand and hold it, and I'm going to mark lines from the top down to the bottom. Now this can be as regular or irregular as you like. Again, pumpkins are not that bothered. Up, round. All I want to do is make sure I don't end up with two pieces too close together, and this is going to work out absolutely perfect because I've put one there. That's it. So you see it's started to now look a little bit more like an orange than an apple. But to make it more pumpkin-like, we now have to start to manipulate it a bit. So what I'm going to do is, where each of these lines are, I'm going to push the clay in. So I use my fingers, push the clay and shape it to be a bit more bulgy at each of these points. Nice soft clay so I can get away with this. Hold it, shape it, pinch it in all the way around. And that looks a bit like a squash. Okay, that's okay. Because now what we do is we again go back round it with my fingers, mark the points, shape it, form it, make sure each one of these bulgy bits is defined and as smooth as it can be. Okay, all the way around. And so I'm pressing it down as well in between, just to make sure it doesn't get too tall. I wanted a little squash. Okay. Shape. Okay. Just check it going in properly at the bottom as well. Nice base. Just shaving it, moulding it between my fingers just to make that nice form that you get with a squash. Okay, so we have our basic pumpkin. Now, next thing is it needs a stalk. So I get a piece of clay. Don't want to make it too thin, but if you're firing it, remember it mustn't be too thick either. This one I'm going to have quite a long stalk. So I'm going to roll it out a bit. So one end's going to go on there. So to make sure it goes on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to splat it. So make it look much more like a stalk. Then scrape it all over, make for a good join, paint some of my slip on it. And I'm going to put it in place there. And I'm going to twist it round and round and round so it stops moving. And then I know I've got it fixed nice and tight. Okay. I'm going to a little bit. I don't want to make it too defined because the real stalk isn't. But I want to make sure it's going to stay put and it's all nice and tight. And what I'm going to do with this now, just to make it interesting, is I'm going to put some bark marks on it. So I'm going to get the back of my knife and I'm just going to go around and just put some score marks in it to make it look a bit more like a woody stem, a bit less like a piece of clay. All the way around. Just using the back of my knife just to make some marks. This is a good way of making marks generally. If you want to make something look woody, it's just use the back of the knife, short strokes, long strokes, overlapping strokes, and it'll all have to come together. Just pinch that down a little bit, make sure that's on. Okay. Right. Side there. Again, I'm just going to make sure that's stuck down there. Spread it out a little bit. Okay. Then I'm going to get this one stalk and I'm going to, just to make it say a bit more interesting, I'm going to very carefully twist it. As they do. But be careful at this point. It's very warm here at the moment. I've had a bit of an Indian summer, as we call it here in the UK. And consequently it's gone very hot very quickly. The clay is drying. So a little twist like that. And then just one last thing to do to make it just a little more interesting is I'm going to make a leaf. So I'm just going to, I actually have quite big leaves, so I'm just going to go a little bit there. I could roll this out, but I'm not going to because I want it reasonable thickness, but not too thick, not too thin. About the thickness of a nice, so about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to leaf. I'm not even sure this is exactly how their leaves are, but we'll go with this. I don't think anybody's going to contradict me. Okay, something like that, which I'm then going to put a mark in. Okay, I'll fold it a bit to make it a little bit more like a leaf, and I'm just going to attach that to the back of that. So again, a bit of slip on it. Attach it to the stalk, make sure it's on there nice and tight, and then to make sure it stays on the stalk, I'm going to put a little bit of clay up the back of it, up here, work it in, put my marks back in again, I've just lost, okay, and then we have our pumpkin. However, just one last thing to do to make it actually get through the firing. If it's going to be kiln fired, we've obviously got a pocket of air caught up in there, which is going to expand during the firing. So we're going to take it upside down, stab your knife in it, give it a good twist, blow in it, make sure you've got it hollow, and that's it. Job done.